Hi, good afternoon, my respected colleagues, classmates, to Dr. Wairin Dator. Good afternoon. This is Efren Molina from Saudi Arabia and with my partner Jeffrey De Jesus, who is now currently working in UAE. We are here to present our final requirement for your subject models of research, and we have chosen to discuss phenomenology. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to discuss and describe the research method, particularly phenomenology. So it is a broad discipline and method of inquiry in philosophy. It was developed largely by the German philosophers Edmund Husserl and Martin Heidegger. They based their theory on the premise that reality consists of objects and events or phenomena as they are perceived or understood in the human consciousness and not of anything independent of human consciousness. Now, the purpose of this phenomenological approach is to illuminate the specific, to identify phenomena by gathering deep information and perceptions from the participants through inductive, qualitative methods such as interviews, discussions, and participants' observation and representing it from the perspective of the research participants. It is based in a paradigm of personal knowledge and subjectivity and emphasizes the importance of personal perspective and interpretation. Phenomenology of practice is a form of sensitive practice issuing from practical experiences and reflections wherein the researchers help informants describe their live experiences without leading the discussion. Through in-depth conversations, researchers strive to gain entrance into the informant's world, to have full access to their experiences as live of a small number of study participants, often 10 or fewer. It shows that phenomenology seeks to describe rather than to explain and to start from a perspective free from hypotheses or preconceptions. For the historical background, phenomenology is derived from the Greek phenomenon, meaning appearance. This method is rooted in a philosophical tradition where this approach is considered as a way to discover the meaning of people's life experiences by investigating the subjective phenomena, the belief that critical truths about reality are grounded in people's life experiences. Among the two schools of phenomenology, namely descriptive phenomenology and interpretative phenomenology, or hermeneutics, descriptive phenomenology was developed first by Edmund Husserl. Edmund Husserl established the discipline of phenomenology as a first kind of descriptive psychology. He emphasized that experiences of the participants are described and researchers' perceptions are set aside or bracketed in order to enter the life world of the research participant without any presumptions. The experience is recognized to involve the perception, thought, memory, imagination, and emotions of the participant while they are focusing their gaze on a specific event. Martin Heidegger, a student of Husserl, moved away from his professor's philosophy into interpretative phenomenology. He criticized and expanded Husserl's phenomenological inquiry to encompass understanding and experience of being itself. He developed his original theory of Dasein, a non-dualistic human being engaged in the world. Heidegger took phenomenology as a metaphysical ontology rather than as rather than the foundational discipline Husserl believed it to be. He stressed interpreting and understanding not just by describing human experience. He emphasized that the focus of phenomenological inquiry is the meaning of people's experience in regard to phenomenon or descriptive phenomenology, and how to those and how those experiences are interpreted. Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most famous classical phenomenologists in his Transcendence of the Ego, is strongly influenced by two streams of thought: the reactionary stream and phenomenological stream. Sartre discussed the metaphysical and epistemological sides of his philosophy. He also emphasized that human beings are not defined, for they are nothing, and should just be what they are and be true to their essence, since the core of human being will always be a fundamental nothingness. For the philosophical framework, the philosophy of phenomenology resides within naturalistic paradigm. Now, what is the experience like? What does this experience mean? And how does the life world present itself to the participant or to me as a researcher? It is considered as an approach to explore and understand people's everyday life experiences. The researcher assumes that there is an essence, an essential invariant structure that can be understood in the same way like what an ethnographers assume that culture exists. The goal of phenomenological inquiry is to understand fully live experience and the perceptions to which it gives rise, and acknowledges people's physical ties to their world. They think, see, hear, feel, and are conscious through their body's interaction with the world. Some phenomenological researchers, the inquiry includes not only gathering information from informants but also efforts to experience the phenomenon in the same way, typically through interviews, conversations, participants' observation, action research, focused meetings, and introspective reflection. For the process, procedures, steps in conducting research design, including examples, bracketing, trustworthiness, data gathering, coding, etc. So, as a research study starts with the selection of a topic, problem, or area of interest, as well as the paradigm, which consists of basic set of beliefs that guide the research action. Once the phenomenon is identified, it will dictate the method to be used in conducting the research, and the participants or informants will be selected based on the researcher's judgment as well as from the purpose or objectives of the research. To ensure ethical research, the researcher will provide an informed consent to the participants or informants who will be included in the study. The informed consent will contain certain information like voluntary participating in the research, the purpose, procedures, risks and benefits of the research, and the procedures to be used to protect confidentiality. When the participants or informants adhere to it, long interviews or other variety of methods in data gathering will be utilized to elicit or capture the rich descriptions of the phenomena and their settings until such time that the researcher reach the saturation point. The researcher will write in his field notes everything that comprises of what he hears, sees, experiences, and thinks in the course of collecting and reflecting on the process. The transcription of data will be utilized by the researcher in explicitation of the data. This process has 5 steps of phases, which are bracketing and phenomenological reduction, delineating units of meaning, clustering of units of meaning to form themes, summarize each interview to validate and modify and general and unique themes for all the interviews and composite summary. Bracketing refers to the process of identifying and holding in abeyance preconceived beliefs and opinions about the phenomenon under study. Although bracketing can never be achieved totally, researchers strive to bracket out any presuppositions in an effort to confront the data in pure form. Bracketing is an iterative process that involves preparing, evaluating, and providing systematic ongoing feedback about the effectiveness of the bracketing. Phenomenological researchers, as well as other qualitative researchers, often maintain a reflexive journal in their efforts to bracket. Phenomenological reduction, on the other hand, means reduction to pure subjectivity. Suspension or bracketing out is in sense taken either for or against the researcher's own presuppositions and not allowing his meanings and interpretations or theoretical concepts to enter the unique world of the informant participant, or for the world of the informant or participant. It is recommended then that the researcher listens repeatedly to the audio recording to become familiar with the words used by the interviewee in order to develop a holistic sense, or the gestalt. The researcher is required to make a substantial effort to judge while removing all his own presuppositions to avoid inappropriate judgment. The researcher then proceeds to the analysis based by extracting significant statements, categorize it, and provide meanings of all the significant statements. And this will be scrutinized carefully to eliminate redundancy. So the researcher will consider the literal content, the number of significant statements, and how the nonverbal cues was stated. Now, with the list of significant statements, the researcher will rigorously examine all the significant statements to elicit its meaning with holistic content, which needs the judgment and skills of the researcher, since he will engage in something which cannot be precisely delineated, for he is involved in his creative insight. Clusters of themes will be formed by grouping all the meanings together and identify a significant topic or unit of significance. And it is very important for the researcher to go back to the recorded interview and check the list of units of meanings to derive clusters of appropriate meaning. The researchers come to understand and define the phenomenon by making a summary that incorporates all the themes that elicited from the data, gives a holistic context. Each individual has its own way of experiencing things in different contexts, but needs to be understood in relation to the others and to the total inner world. To conduct validity check, the researcher will return to the informant, participant, and present the summary to them to determine if the essence of the interview has been correctly captured, and once the informant clarifies things, any necessary modification is done as a result of the validity check. Once the process has been done for all the interviews, the researcher will look for the common theme to most of all the interviews as well as the different variations, but need to be cautious because the unique or minority voices are important counterpoints to bring out the essence of the phenomenon being studied. Thus, a qualitative research must ensure trustworthiness and credibility of his research. A research can be considered as trustworthy when the following are observed: credibility, transferability, dependability, and confirmability. To ensure credibility, the researcher must use a recognized method of phenomenology to gain deep understanding of a phenomenon. By creating an audit trail through reflexive journal and memos, dependability criteria is observed. When the researcher is aware of subjectivities and convey correctly the ideas of the participants or informants and not his own self-experience, then the research is considered to have confirmability. Lastly, when the result of the research study can be generalized, like when a reader gains insights from the study and relate that to his personal experience, to observe transferability. Meeting all these requirements, the research conducted is considered to be trustworthy and credible. For the data analysis, several techniques are available for data analysis when using the phenomenological method, though these techniques are slightly different from each other. There is a general pattern of moving from the participants' description to the researcher's synthesis of all the participants' descriptions. Colisi suggests a series of 7 steps. Number 1, read the participants' narratives to acquire a feeling for their ideas in order to understand them fully. Number 2, extract significant statements to identify keywords and sentences relating to the phenomenon under study. Number 3, formulate meanings for each of these significant statements. Number 4, repeat this process across participants' stories and cluster recurrent meaningful themes. Validate these themes by returning to the informants to check interpretation. Number 5, integrate the resulting themes into a rich description of the phenomenon under study. Number 6, reduce these themes to an essential structure that offers an explanation of the behavior. And lastly, return to the participants to conduct further interviews or elicit their opinions on the analysis in order to cross-check interpretation. Some researchers did not cite the references, but they take into consideration that they immerse themselves into a dynamic and evolving interaction with the data both as a whole and in part through extensive readings and rereadings, reflection, dialogue, and by challenging assumptions, all of which help the researcher move toward an understanding that opens up new possibilities. Okay. Thank you, my respected or my dear respected colleagues. If you have any questions or suggestions, kindly send me an email through renmolinarn@yahoo.com or through our PBWorks software. Thank you so much, and Ramadan Kareem and happy Nurses Week to everyone. God bless.